In this lesson, you will be learning about thermochemistry. We will learn about endothermic reactions, exothermic reactions, and using Q equals MCAT. First off, there are endothermic and exothermic reactions. An endothermic reaction is when a reaction absorbs energy from its surroundings, so it will take in the heat from its surroundings and become hotter. An exothermic reaction is when a reaction releases energy to its surroundings, meaning it will release heat and become colder. So an easy way to remember this is endothermic, meaning it takes heat in, and then just to remember exothermic is releasing heat. So how do you know which reaction will be endothermic and exothermic? Well, first, you know whether a reaction is endothermic or exothermic based on the enthalpy change, otherwise known as delta H. When the delta H of a reaction is positive, the reaction is endothermic. So when the delta H is positive, it means that heat is being taken in to the system. When the delta H of a reaction is negative, the reaction is exothermic. So when heat is being released, it is being taken away, meaning it is negative. So now we'll try a couple problems. On the first problem, the delta H is negative 215. The delta H is mainly what you'll be looking at here. The problems don't necessarily come into play right now. So for the first one, the delta H is negative 215. So would that be endothermic or exothermic? It would be exothermic because it is negative, meaning heat is being released from the system. On number 2, a delta H of positive 27. Is that endothermic or exothermic? That would be endothermic because the delta H value is positive, meaning heat is being taken in. Now we'll move on to using Q equals MCAT. In this equation, the Q stands for the heat energy being transferred. The M stands for the mass of the substance in grams, so that's M stands for mass, it's easy to remember. The C stands for the specific heat capacity of a substance. So remember C and capacity. Finally, delta T is the change in temperature of the substance, which is the final temperature minus the initial temperature. First example here is what is the heat absorbed if 2.0 grams of water is heated from 10 degrees Celsius to 25 degrees Celsius. The specific heat of water is 4.18. Now, the specific heat of water is something that will need to be memorized. That one will not be given to you as often, but other times you will always be given the specific heat of a substance if it is not commonly known. So this is easily seen as a Q equals MCAT problem because you have your mass, you have your change in temperature, and you have your specific heat. That means you have 3 out of your 4 variables. So first, you'll be using Q equals MCAT. Secondly, what's next is to plug in your variables. So you know your mass is 2, you know your specific heat is 4.18, and you know your change in temperature is the final temperature minus the initial temperature, which is 25 minus 10. Sometimes the temperature will be in Kelvin or it will be in Celsius. It doesn't matter which one as long as you stay consistent. Or if the specific heat is given in Celsius or Kelvin, that's what you will need to use. So next, all you have to do is plug in and solve for Q. So here we have Q equals 2 times 4.18 times 15, and that equals 125.4 joules. Your heat transferred to your Q value will always need to be in joules, unless otherwise noted. So let's try one more problem. 300 grams of ethanol is heated from 10 degrees Celsius to 12 degrees Celsius. If the specific heat of ethanol is 2.44, how much energy is required for this process? So again, you have 3 out of your 4 variables. You have your mass, you have your change in temperature, and you have your specific heat. So you know that you will need to use Q equals MCAT. Secondly, again, just plug in the variables. You know your mass is 300. You don't have to do any converting because it's already given in grams. Your specific heat is 2.44, and your change in temperature is just 12 minus 10, which is your final minus initial, which is 2 degrees Celsius. So lastly, just plug them in. So your Q equals 300 times 2.44 times 2. And that equals 1464 joules. And that's all that you have to do for Q equals MCAT. Finally, you need to have your follow along notes completed. Next, you will need to open the Google form quiz that is linked in the Word document, and this will prompt you to do what's next.